I've played TF2 for quite a bit, and although the number of hours I've sunk into this game would be considered small compared to other people, I've had time to learn a lot of the niche tech that this game has to offer. Ranging from rocket jumping and sticky jumping to the more niche tech like wall bugs or stock launches, or the weird shit that H2 has on his channel, I'd say I know a lot about this game.
Make sure to taunt right after you swing your melee weapon for maximum style points.
You might say you probably know a lot about this game too. There is, however, one tech that I can guarantee none of you have ever even considered learning, let alone using, and when I say it, you might not believe me. Have you ever thought about traffic cones?
Girl, I must.
On June 8th, 2026, like 4 weeks ago, I played a Gully Wash process scrim during which, in warm-up, I and several other people started shooting traffic cones all around the map. There wasn't really a goal to this, but I realized this was actually really fun. The next day, I spent 4 hours on a private Gully Wash server just messing around with traffic cones. That's when I thought to myself, hey, this is pretty fun. Maybe I should turn this into a game mode. And so I did. At first it was mostly just a prototype map which consisted of a box in which you stood with a cone in front of you. There weren't any goals or anything, just an empty box with you and the cone. Thus, cone_prototype_A1 was born.
Wow!
Now before I go any further, I need to quickly explain a few things about props, so just bear with me for a bit. This is an entity. Right now, it's set to be an info_player_team spawn, which is basically a player spawn point. You can set the type of this entity to be a wide array of different things using this little menu over here, like spectator cameras, info_observer_point, or in our case, a physics prop, prop_physics. When we turn our entity into a physics prop, we need to select the model first, which in our case is going to be orange_cone001.mdl. Ignoring these keys for a second, we need to move over to the props flags. Here we can determine what affects it and how it interacts with the world, aka the map and the players. The flag that's important to us is the third one from the top, which determines whether the physics prop is considered to be debris or not. The reason why this is important is because debris doesn't have any physics collision or a hitbox you can interact with. This is the flag that cones placed around Val maps have turned on, but for our purposes it will need to be turned off. This one flag is essentially what makes the game mode work. Since debris can't be interacted with or pushed around by hitscan, making it a regular physics prop that exists in the world was the better solution, but I'll cover that in more depth later on. Before I cover the basics, you should probably first know how the cone actually works. As I mentioned briefly beforehand, it's a physics prop with a hitbox, meaning you can airshot it with rockets and move it around with hitscan weapons. What you might not know is, well, everything. But basically the cone gets the biggest boosts and is controlled most easily using rockets when it is standing on the ground in the upright position. By upright, I mean when the tip of the cone is facing the sky and the cone is standing on its flat base. Anyway, depending on where you shoot the cone with either rockets or bullets, it will react differently. For instance, the closer you shoot rockets to the cone, the higher it will fly. The opposite is also true, where the further your rockets are, the more laterally it will fly. With the more boring stuff out of the way, I can actually show you the basics of controlling the cone. You will need to have the grasp on these techniques to effectively perform the more complicated things I'll be showing later on, but up first is the high launch. As the name implies, performing this tech will launch the cone high up in the sky without giving it much horizontal momentum in most cases. To do this, aim your crosshair at around the point where the slant part of the cone meets the base. Next is the far launch, which is pretty much the exact opposite of the high launch. You will want to aim on the ground behind the cone, relatively close to it, but not directly on it. This will give it a lot of horizontal momentum and a little bit of height. The previous two techniques were mainly just rockets, but as I mentioned beforehand, hitscan also comes into play when dealing with this specific cone. The main technique with hitscan is the air boost. First you'll want to perform a high launch or far launch, and then after you shoot the rocket, swap to your shotgun of choice. I'll cover Sidegrades later on in the video. Once you have your shotgun out, the cone should already be in the air, and then you just want to shoot it. This gives it a massive horizontal boost of velocity. Along the same principle, you can also have the cone redirect, which is performed by just shooting the cone with a shotgun as it is traveling in order to change its direction of motion. The difference between an air boost and a redirect is pretty simple, since it just depends on the direction in which the cone was traveling when you initially shot it. There is also hit scan juggling, which is just doing cone boosts or redirects while maintaining the cone in the air, so instead of standing next to the cone and shooting it forwards, you're standing below it and shooting it upwards. Another important thing to learn is cone pogo, which is just done like normal pogo, except instead of keeping yourself above the ground, you are keeping the cone above the ground. The simplest way to do it is shooting the surface below or next to the cone in order to shoot it away from it. This fundamental technique is essential for cone control, since you know which direction the cone will go after you shoot the surface next to it, which will give you the advantage over your opponent. Pretty much the difference maker in most matchups relies on who has better cone control and who knows more tech. Speaking of which, I actually forgot to mention what the goal of the game mode is, but you probably figured that out by now. The main goal is to get the glowing orange cone into your opponent's basket. I don't think it could get any more simpler than that. Each game is played to a win limit of 3, where the premise is that the goal of the game relies more on scoring the goals rather than fighting the other player, and to achieve this premise, both players have a base health of 1000 and have their health and ammo regenerated every 3 seconds. This ensures that it's quite literally impossible to actually kill the other person, at least without their help. Each round has a timer of 3 minutes, after which the round is set to a stalemate and neither team gains any point for that round. The entire game is played until one person either scores 3 goals or the game timer of 30 minutes reaches 0, after which the person with the highest score wins. Yeah, it's that simple. But you know what isn't as simple?
Psst, heck it. Do you wanna learn how to do a sick contact?
Yeah, man, what you got?
I got some basics, but I see you ain't into that basic stuff. Doing that good shit, huh?
I don't know, man. I don't fuck with the harder stuff.
I can see it in your eyes, bro. Come over here, let me show you something.
Hold on, is this the segue?
Yup, that's right. Unlike the standardized education system, instead of mindlessly memorizing random facts, it's time to actually apply the knowledge you just learned to realistic situations. I'm quickly just going to list off the most common techniques for scoring goals, and then I'll cover them in more detail one by one. Pre-round score. Redirect score. Floor score. Rocket wall spike. Hit scan air spike. Alright, starting from the beginning and going down the list, first we have the pre-round score. This technique basically relies on getting in position to score a goal incredibly quickly, somewhere between 7 to 10 seconds since a new round starts. This is only really doable due to the cone's initial positioning high up off the ground, where you can really quickly launch it over the barrier into the enemy goal. To perform the pre-round score, you will want to do the following. First, get in position by rocket jumping towards the barrier, and then do a rocket jump onto the barrier. Make sure to only start holding the movement key headed towards the barrier once you are actually over it, since it's possible to occasionally texture bug on the wall. Additionally, make sure to aim behind you instead of in front of you when getting on the barrier, since TF2 by default has an aim lock when aiming up or down. If you aim forward and shoot down, the rocket will push you backwards, away from the barrier. Once you are on it though, try to position yourself somewhere in the middle for the most consistent lineup. Next, perform a high launch on the cone, and then a hit scan air boost once the cone starts to fall a little bit. Do note that if you shoot it too quickly, it's going to fly over the backboard. Next is probably the most consistent way to score a goal, and that's a redirect score. This technique is performed by first using cone wall pogo to line up the cone, the goal, and yourself, and then by performing a redirect, you shoot it into the goal. Note that you should be aiming to hit the cone into the goal's backboard, so that the cone has a place to correct its momentum and land inside of the goal. Another useful technique is the floor score, where you perform a high launch from the floor, and then use an air boost or redirect immediately afterwards to knock the cone into the goal. A tricky but powerful technique you should also learn is the rocket wall spike, whereby in the case that the cone is close to the wall, you can shoot the rocket such that it explodes parallel or a bit above the cone, giving it both horizontal and downwards vertical momentum. It's usually very hard to counter this strategy unless you know it's coming or have a very quick reaction time, making it incredibly powerful against almost any opponent. The trade-off for this power is the fact that a rocket wall spike is usually very hard to set up, especially against better opponents, meaning it will be very hard to perform. However, in the case that you have the correct lineup, it almost guarantees a score. In the same vein, you also have the hit scan air spike, but instead of knocking the cone away from the wall, you are shooting it down from the sky into the goal. This relies on either your opponent shotgun jungling the cone into the sky to prevent you from knocking it down with rockets, or you doing that exact thing yourself. In the case that you see the cone high in the sky, try rocket jumping up to it and shooting it with your shotgun from above, preferably into the enemy goal. The downward shotgun force will usually be more than enough to stop them from using their own shotgun to knock it away, but note that the results may vary between situations. Other than this tech, there's also some game mode specific strategy you should know about. Most players that I've played with usually employed the strategy of trying to keep the cone on my side of the arena. You should be doing exactly that. To achieve this, you'll want to play around the white tile area, a bit behind or on the hazard lines. Previously I mentioned that I'll cover side grades. The main technique with hit scan is the air boost. First you'll want to perform a high launch or far launch, and then after you shoot the rocket, swap to your shotgun of choice. I'll cover side grades later on in the video. And now is the time to do so. The original is specifically useful due to its centered rockets, meaning it's much easier to line up specific shots like a high launch for the pre-round score. The stock rocket launcher is still useful due to its high splash damage radius. However, in my opinion, the original is superior due to the centered rockets. The Liberty launcher, however, proves to be the best out of all of the rocket launchers, since not only does it have the exact same splash radius as both the stock rocket launcher and the original, but it also has a 40% increased rocket speed. This increase in rocket speed is an obvious buff since it allows you to more easily control the cone from farther away, sometimes allowing you to just barely snipe out scores on opponents using slower rocket launchers or with a slower reaction time.
Tego trusty shotguna. Jednak widzimy, że to jest pewna zmiana.
On the topic of secondaries, the easiest winners are either of the three shotguns. The stock shotgun has a more consistent bullet spread but an abysmal draw speed. The panic attack has a very fast draw speed and really good quick switch or single fire accuracy with its high number of pellets per shot, but that accuracy diminishes over longer ranges and time. The reserve shooter, however, is a mix between the two, providing a consistent spread and faster draw time. However, both the shotgun and the panic attack rule in their respective playstyles, with the reserve shooter being more left out to players who want a mix of both worlds. That was a bit much, but since it's a new game mode, people don't really know how to play it. For this exact purpose, I hosted a small tournament event with a few friends to see how they enjoyed it. The following will be a collage of a bunch of clips or highlight-worthy moments from the event presented from an outside perspective. My friends also suggested doing this kind of tournament with my subscribers, so if you'd potentially want to participate in this kind of event, like this video or leave a comment below voicing your opinion. With all that out of the way, enjoy the highlights!
Okay.
O, a was doleciał.
Kurwa, widzisz, mówiłem. Zaraz go wypierdoli. O, ale się odbija.
On nie chce łatwej wygranej, no.
Awas jest, kurwa, jest, awas.
Sorry, pierdolną we mnie tego.
Szynik ma dobry line-up, ale Wanik go denajuje w ostatniej sekundzie.
Postajcie, drodzy widzowie, lepszy remis niż w dupę penis. Pozdro.
Prawie ładny save.
Ale piękna akcja! Ale piękna akcja! Wykorzystał to!
Oni się naparzają.
I witam was, proszę państwa, z tej strony Wanik. Dzisiaj będę komentował pierwszy mecz, znaczy w sumie kurwa chuj wie który mecz w Con Pro. Trzeci, dobrze. Aktualnie mamy prowadzenie ze strony drużyny czerwonej, to znaczy 12, inaczej mówiącego przez kolegów grającego na Avast Pro, który jest botem na demo, no co mogę powiedzieć, ale może na pewno trafi sobie lepiej. Gra bardzo dynamiczna, tak dynamiczna, że nie nadążam. Jak to mówił Messi, gramy dopóki pachołek w grze. Także teraz tutaj niebieski. Przechodzimy znowu do ataku. Czerwoni w ewidentnym tutaj przewadze, jeżeli chodzi do drużyny niebieskiej. 12 tutaj cały czas molestuje Avast, a teraz widać, że władował mu rakietę w dupę, a Avast przeruchony przez Opena nawet tego nie poczuł. I tutaj fajnie. Jednak to nic z tego, przechodzimy dalej do ataku. Avast nie ogarnia, gdzie jest pachołek. Przed chwilą kopnął go lewym jądrem, bądź też lewą nogą. Ciężko mi ogarnąć, bo jedno i drugie zarośnięte niesamowicie.
I
Ja
wchodzi.
wiem.
Wykańcza przeciwnika, mamy, proszę państwa, meczyk 3-0.
Ustawione, wypierdalam stąd, ja pierdolę.
Jak to?
No, Wiber merkuje w drużynie Pedro, no.
Ale nie wiem.
Ja
Merkuje.
pierdolę. O kurwa, już widzę, coś nie działo.
Już ci stoi? Wani, gdzie komentarz?
Co? O kurwa!
Wani, gdzie komentarz?
Witam proszę państwa na kolejnym meczu, tutaj już rozpoczął się 1-0 ze strony Vibra. Ogólnie ciężko będzie komentować ten mecz, bo to jest tak jakbyśmy komentowali drużynę FC Barcelony kontra Błękitni Wejherowo.
Błękitny Wejherowo. O, ale
Czyli
zepsułem.
generalnie chujów 100. Vibr tutaj z rozegraniem
A?
i
Na discuss to winners. Discuss to winners.
tutaj obydwoje tutaj walczą z tym konem, jednak Vibr chyba z litości swojego oponenta ładuje sobie samobuja.
Jestem taki dobry,
Nie.
że sam se walę.
Tam piłką daje sobie jakaś najnapa, nie trafia jednak. Szymik na tarciu stosuje swój klasyczny shotgun move. Shotgun move znany już z lat 80., kiedy to ze swoim starym ładowali łopatą sąsiada, kiedy kupił nowego Passata.
Ja pierdolę Bani.
Let's go.
Dziękuję bardzo.
Kto powiedział, że Szymik wygrał turniej?
No bo to ustawiłem to.
Oczywiście.
Tutaj napierdalanka na midzie. Zobaczymy, co tu się dalej wydarzy. Kąt zagubiony.
Ale haj, bomba!
Niesamowita obrona ze strony Szymika. Jak to się mówi, gruby na bramkę. Przynajmniej za mojego zawsze się tak grało. I
To jest
Petro
jego szansa.
ewidentnie w stresie i w nerwach władował sobie cały pachołek w dupę, żeby Szymik nie mógł go przesunąć na jego stronę. Jednak widzimy odbyt naładowany lubrykantem. Pachołek wypadł i gramy dalej.
Ale zacięta gra.
I kolejna runda kończy się remisem.
Tak jak stare przysłowie mówi.
A teraz czas na słowo od naszego sponsora. Jebać!
Będę musiał to wyciąć.
Ja to mi dupą zasłaniał!
Jakieś przepychanki w polu niebieskim, nie wiem o co chodzi. Gdzie jest sędzia? Sędzia chyba w tym momencie tankuje tyskie za garażem z tyłu.
Co się dzieje?
Zak nie ogarnia jego
pierdolę, nie.
Malak pojebany.
Ten tam się kurwa teleportuje między uniwersum.
Ty, a może to przełożymy? Może to przełożymy, kiedy będziemy mieć lepszy internet czy coś.
Ja
nie fair.
pierdolę. Nie, on naprawdę...
Ja myślę, że
Nie.
jak Zak jak Doktor Strange, on widzi wszystkie możliwe opcje aktualnie.
Open your eyes.
Nie kurwa.
Chyba wygrają.
Zak przeskakuje się przez linie czasowe, naprawdę.
On już wygrał w jakimś innym timeline.
Kurwa,
Canon event!
ja myślę, że Zak nie do końca...
Own event!
Zak nie do końca aktualnie wie, w którym uniwersum się znajduje.
Zak się obudził.
Ja pierdolę.
Nie wiem, co tu dużo komentować. Myślę, że wszyscy widzimy, co się dzieje. Szymik na tarciu. W powietrzu. Kon opada, nikt nie trafia.
Zak dalej nie ogarnia, co się dzieje.
Ja mam wrażenie, jakby już to oglądał.
Kurwa no!
Zak aktualnie przenosi się między różnymi uniwersami. Aktualnie jest uniwersum...
Izak dostaje w pizdę!
Zak zaraz znowu będzie przeskakiwać między różnymi uniwersami, a Szymik kurwa nie będzie mógł trafić kurwa do kosza.
Spokojnie, trafię to. Trust.
Spokojnie, jeszcze się rozkręci.
O ja... I skaczą dwa pedały. O, przepraszam, tego nie powiedziałem. Quit Administration chodziło mi o pedał od
O! Widzimy, że Zak momentami rozpędza się niczym Flash. Zaczyna przeskakiwać między różnymi uniwersami, wszechświatami, cofa się do tyłu, do przodu.
Ale jakiś student zawsze wybiera złą opcję.
O, leci na drugą
Zapraszam.
stronę? Już nie.
O!
Ale będzie...
Siła razy masa, kurwa no. Niestety nie tym razem.
To było, nie wierzę.
O!
Nie! 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 Nie!
Ora se!
Jezu, ale emocje.
I skacze, bomb Kona! Kon 200, bombcie go!
Kot 200!
Kon prosi o buffa. Medic. Błagam.
200!
Banik, ty chyba tam ryczysz, co?
Kończ wstydowość, panie.
Banik ryczy.
Ja nie mogę, kurwa. Gość
Halo?
przeskakuje mi.
Ja pierdolę. Ja bardziej nie mogę z Banika niż z tej gry. Ale czajnik się odpalił.
Kurwa, bombi to. Ja pierdolę.
O, ja, o. Neuron activation. O.
Ja pierdolę, jak?
Naprawdę dygnął.
I wraca na niebieską stronę.
Nie, o nie, teleportacja się zaczyna.
Spokojnie, zaraz biję.
Zag wraca do światów równoległych.
Brzmi jakoby kurwa ten internet nogą kręcił na korbkę, tak kurwa spokojnie. Już dochodzi.
O kurwa.
No,
Witam Państwa, z tej strony Wanik. Dzisiaj będę komentował dalej mecz finałowy pomiędzy Twelfem a Szymikiem. Jestem troszeczkę spóźniony, jednak widzę tutaj, że hegemonia ze strony drużyny Blue trwa w najlepsze, ponieważ wygrywają 1-0. Teraz widzimy tutaj Twelf podchodzi do ataku. Szymik bardzo tutaj defensywnie próbuje się bronić, robi wszystko co może, używa rakietnicy oraz swojego trusty shotguna. Jednak widzimy, że to jest pewna zmiana.
Co? Co? Sam se wjebałem!
Nie wiem co mogę powiedzieć tutaj, proszę Państwa. No, Szymik załadował taką pakę, że
Ale mnie w czopo załadował, w czekoladę.
zajebał bramę niczym Ronaldo za dobrych lat.
Ja
Twelf natomiast
pierdolę.
zagrał jak Ronaldo na ostatnich mistrzostwach świata. Przechodzimy dalej. Mit wygrany po stronie Twelfa. Znowu w natarciu na Szymiku. Szymik stoi w miejscu niczym Sentry i nakurwia shotgunem. Sprawdza się to w kontrataku. Widzę, że Szymik tutaj obiera taktykę kontratakującą, niczym żółw, niczym mnich w spokoju czeka, aż przeciwnik wystrzela się, wypsika z wszystkiego co może, żeby ukąsić go i zapierdolić mu bułę, niczym Marcin Gortat wsadzał piły w swoich latach świetnych. Tutaj 12 z niesamowitym rolatą, jednak Szymik zagra dołem. Tutaj lekko się gubię, ale to ze względu na spożycie pewnych płynów.
Jakie kurwa cudem to się dzieje, co?
Pierwsze miejsce, kurwa! Serio? Ja pierdolę, wygrałem Opena w kołnie.
Chciałem powiedzieć, że przepuściłem cię, Szymik, tak? Tak, że pamiętaj o mnie. Ten Batman nie ocalił tego pachołka. Jednak zobaczymy, co dalej. Pedro zrobił zajebisty rollout, jednak zmisował 4 shoty, 5, przepraszam. No niestety tak to się dzieje, jeżeli widzisz 16 pachołków po wybiciu 4 browarów, a dokładniej harnasiów.
Piłeś przed tym browarki, Pedro?
No comment.
No, comment.
Pedro jednak
co się
zajebistym odbiciem od tutaj krawężnika, jak to mówił Sun Tzu, wojnę wygrywa ten, kto zapanuje nad chaosem. Żaden z tych jednak graczy nad tym chaosem aktualnie nie panuje, więc mamy totalne RNG. Jednak tak załadował bramę
Nie.
i Pedro dostaje wpierdol od naszego fantaspikowego doktora Strange'a, który teleportował się przez cały mecz. Niesamowite rzeczy, niesamowity mecz, niesamowity turniej. Oddaję go do studia, dziękuję bardzo.
As I mentioned previously, if you'd like to participate in this kind of event, make sure to leave a like or a comment down below, in which case if enough people are keen on participating, I'll try to get something organized. Anyway, that's about it, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Roll credits.